Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Alessandrini, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tom McGorman. Tom, how's it going?
Hello.
Hi.
We got a big debate to settle.
Uh-oh.
So in the listeners in the Discord recently, somebody asked, DJ, why are you the host and Tom's only the co-host?
Tom, if you want to host the thing, I will bring the podcast machine to you.
I don't want to host the thing. I'm completely happy with co-host. You know what? Actually, Zach Lavoie has this great thing that he told me about for like a business theory or like business acumen conversation.
Yeah.
And he's like, not every person is Batman. Not every person is like the person leading the charge or like going to be the CEO. But no CEO makes it to where they are, or no Batman makes it to where they are without a Robin or without like a person that is their go-to. Every single problem gets run through that person by accident or by purpose, whatever. I feel like that's this podcast. You are for sure Batman. I'm for sure Robin, but you're not getting anywhere without me.
You're the best Robin a Batman could ask for, Tom. I'm not sure if I could be Batman though. Now I feel Batman imposter syndrome.
You're the podcast host that we don't want, but we deserve.
Wait, who doesn't want me? What the hell?
I don't know.
All right, we're gonna throw up a poll in the Discord and see if we should switch the roles. I'll train Tom up on the thing, and Tom, I could run the podcast machine, and Tom could absolutely do the intro.
I could, but I'm happy. So I'm also a host, and you're my co-host. That's the reality. When you say I'm your host and this is my co-host, if I said the same thing, it would work.
It would. Yeah.
But I'm still content being Robin.
Okay. Well, even the best Robin ever has to put on the Batman suit every once in a while. So
it's a problem that you're so short, though.
I walk around like it's like a belly shirt for you.
You know what race car drivers look like when they're putting their suits on? They're all scratched over, just trying to like get their arms in it.
Yep.
That's me in your Batman suit.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. How's your week? How was your week? What's going on?
It was pretty good. This is the first episode since PRI. Tom was supposed to be there, and he ate a bad. What kind of bowl? Suki?
A salmon poke bowl. In Columbus, Ohio. Apparently bad choice.
Yeah.
Guys, I got the worst food poisoning I've ever had in my life. So
it sounded pretty gruesome.
I'm sorry I missed everyone at PRI, but I wasn't going anywhere.
Well, Tom, you were certainly missed. And to everyone who listens to the podcast that came up and said hi, thank you. I appreciated that so much. So, Tom, so many people came and said hi. The sales director at Hawk was a little peeved that about half the people coming to the booth just wanted to talk to DJ about the podcast and not about brake pads. Amazing. Hold on, I'm pulling out this one.
That's so funny. So you got scolded for being too popular?
No, I wouldn't say it was scolded, but I think it was more of like what I heard was I didn't hear it from him, but he was talking to some of my coworkers. He's like, is DJ just talking to everyone about brake pads, or is he just talking to his friends? And they went, I think he's talking to his friends. And then I came over to get like a stack of Lizard Brain stickers to give out. And he's like, who are those people? I'm like, oh, they're podcast listeners. And I just like ignored him and like ran away to like pass out the stickers. So I had like frantic like podcast energy like in the booth. It was great.
That's awesome. I love that last week you were like, everyone just come visit me. It'll look like I'm working. I'll get away with it. And then
so many people are visiting me.
You proceeded to not get away with it.
Well, because it was so much. So many people were visiting me that it like he knew something was up. He's like, something is up. Like something's going on. So that was
listeners,
super cool.
Next trade show season, we're gonna train you on some brake pad related conversation, just so that when DJ supervisor comes by, you can all hot swap into that conversation and just figure it out.
So Raul in the chat goes, Hawk sponsored podcast soon incoming. I've brought it up to the team that I could run a podcast for like Hawk, and it would be like we would talk to different members of the team, like production. There's some of the old school people that don't even have anything to do with Hawk anymore. Like I think that would be kind of cool. but they're they're afraid that we'll say something too spicy. So
So they've
womp.
listened.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we say anything too spicy except
No, I
your
think
Bucky's hate.
yeah, but that got a lot of support in our Discord. So if you agreed with me, we belong in the Discord. No, I'm kidding. But honestly, I feel like I understand that like that corporate mentality a little bit where it's like we can't make any waves, we don't want to get anybody in trouble, so we don't want to like put a real voice out there.
It's a
But the
risk.
companies that
It's a
do
risk.
have those
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say
I was
it's a
just gonna say
risk. Sorry, now we're just doing this thing. It's a risk with not uh like known immediate gains, essentially.
right. But I do feel like the companies that do put real voices out there are the ones that are more respected anyway.
Or at least just because I think like well, all right, I'm getting on my hold on, let me climb up my corporate ladder real quick. And I think like honestly, like those companies that you're talking about, I think they do a good job at making the company have like human personalities that are involved with it, right? So it's not just like this, like because I think as a society we're growing tired of like big corporation, like big corporation doesn't necessarily give item legitimacy, right? Like
For sure.
it's almost better if it's like the humans that are working there are like those people are cool and I want to support like them making these brake pads, right? Uh at least that's how I think, but that's not necessary. Like here's the thing, guys, is like Hawk is owned by this like giant like conglomerate of a company, and that or Hawk is owned by a giant friction company, and then that giant friction company is owned by a even gianter conglomerate of like different industrial like type companies.
Dude,
So we're like
the
just this tiny
podcast
thing.
topic or the concept sells itself. You're creating friction in the industry with
Oh,
like a hot takes podcast, the hot takes podcast, creating friction.
oh, I
Oh my
love
god,
it.
I'm so smart.
Oh my god.
And then it's just Matt Waldbaum giving hot takes.
It's just Matt like reading through the GLTC rule book, just like having opinions
Yeah.
on every line.
The corporate account that I can think of that's amazing to me, and I'm a Bridgestone person, but if you don't follow the Goodyear Blimp on Instagram, or like you don't have to follow it, but go look it up. The Goodyear Blimp account on Instagram is hilarious. It's just the dumbest stuff.
I thought you were gonna say,
Also, weirdly, don't ask me how I know this, but the Teletubbies, they have the wildest Instagram account of all time.
all right, I know you said don't ask, but why do you know that, Tom?
I don't have a good answer to that question,
Is
but
there-
I do know
are they
that what I
showing up in
said
your
still rings
algorithm?
true.
Are they showing up in your algorithm? Yeah, see, Mitch Marhefka's like, Tom, explain.
It did, and I was like, "What on earth is that?" I thought it was a meme account, and it was their real one.
Look, if Teletubbies ever show up in my scroll algorithm, I'm just deleting the app. I did something wrong.
They're gonna show up now that I talked about it.
Oh
Everyone who
no.
listened to this, congratulations on the algorithm picking up Teletubbies.
The next person that gets Teletubbies on their algorithm, can you please screenshot it and post it in
Yeah.
the Discord? Oh my goodness. So Tom, the posters for the GT4 thing are ready, correct?
Yeah?
Yep. Okay. So after we
Guys,
record
big
this,
announcement.
yeah. Well, another announcement. We're doing it. Uh, we we need everyone's help to spread the word about the thing because we're about like 3 weeks late of when we were originally anticipating putting the word out. So we need people to share the posters, and they're awesome posters. Tom, you honestly killed it on them. Um, so we need people to share the posters, guide them toward the Discord, uh, all of those things, and then also the broadcast is very expensive, so we're gonna set up like a donation thing. I need to figure out how to make the donation thing so when we I don't want it to like blow up and we get actually, you know what? If we get more money, that means that money just goes toward future broadcasted races and we don't have to ask money for those races. So we would just because the broadcast is expensive because Kyle's really, really good at doing what he does. Uh we're gonna beg for money, guys. We're gonna beg to help us pay for the broadcast. So and you don't have to participate in the race, but uh, join the race, enjoy the broadcast, tell your friends to watch broadcasts, and ask. We're asking to help us pay for it because Kyle's very expensive.
Well, he's worth his
Yes,
value.
he's very worth
Yeah,
his value. That's why we're
but
willing to pay for it. But we know
for sure.
people
But
will
if you
chip in, so we're hoping that that Tom, because this it would be like a car payment to pay Kyle.
yeah,
Yeah.
because he's worth it. Which he will be on the podcast soon as well as a guest. But if you missed the announcement, we're hosting a 4-hour endurance race you can do with 1, 2, 3, 4, however many teammates you want to do in iRacing. It's going to be GT4 cars at Road Atlanta, broadcasted by Kyle Heyer from SimTV and Grid Life and SRO and all you have to do is join the Discord and follow the links to enter the race, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Yep.
That's Saturday, January 4th from like 11 to 4, I think we said, like noon to 4 with qualifying at 11
Yeah, like
Eastern.
the practice server will open up at 10, and then qualifying will happen around like 11,
There you go.
and then the race. So
So right through your middle of the day on Saturday on January 4th.
we're hoping that there's 62 cars in the race because that's how many cars can fit in a server. So that's why we need everyone to help us spread the word.
Hell yeah. Ooh, I'm so excited. I'm going to commentate it with Kyle. I want to put on some good racing and I want to talk about it.
Ooh,
So please join us.
that's gonna be fun. I think I'm gonna solo it because I think that would be fun.
Or we could auction you off. I still like the idea of auctioning you off.
We could auction me
I
off.
wish you could be a bunch of people's teammates instead of just one.
That would be fun. I do
Uh,
have 2 accounts. I
we did
could
that once at the.
hold on. I could.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
I don't know how it would do that though. It would have to be very strategic pit stops. But I have 2 accounts. I could enter both of them on 2 separate teams, and then I could drive like the opening stint on one, and then jump out, and then the other person could jump in.
Good.
Richard,
So we had
I'll
this.
make an event in Discord. He's asking in the chat to make an event.
Yeah. Like I honestly, Raul said Tom's Aruba and food poisoning adventures pumped the brakes on this, and that's so true. I'm so sorry. And racing a GT4 car, there was something good in there.
Mm-hmm.
But we did this at the go-kart track once. We had a 24-hour endurance race, and there were like probably 10 customers of the track that all wanted to be a part of it, but they didn't either have the ability to do the whole thing or they didn't have a friend to do it or whatever. So they kind of put together a hodgepodge team, and then there were 2 of us that worked at the track that were like the subs if there was nobody present in the building in the 24-hour period that we would just hop in. So I ended up doing like almost 6 hours of the race for this team, and most of it was through like the middle of the night, which there was someone's camper in the back of the go-kart track warehouse that I would like go take a nap in and then come get back in the go-kart. That could be you.
Okay.
Super sub.
I do kind of like the idea of raffling it off. That would be pretty fun. I'm trying to think of a way we could do that. Are you
We'll
thinking?
figure it out off air.
Can you think of anything?
But I hope we'll figure it out off the recording. But I hope we get a lot of people who want you as your teammate.
Well, so what I was thinking is that so I'm going on vacation right before the thing. Okay, so I get back from I'm going to New York right after Christmas, and then coming back like New Year's Eve. So New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, probably, I don't know, whatever works better. Maybe we should raffle this off before that. We could practice together, go over like things, and like just try to be as prepared as possible. Whoever wins the raffle, and then we'll do the race. How about we can do that?
Yeah, add some like coaching aspect to it
Yeah, just like
or like teamwork aspect to it.
exactly
Yeah, I
like
like that.
teamwork. I mean, anytime I'm doing an endurance race with a team, like we're all helping each other try to be as fast as possible. It's not like you just show up and wing it. I would never do that in an iRacing endurance race.
Do you want to tell the story of Daytona the last time we all did it?
No, Tom. I want you to. I don't feel like ragging you.
Bragging me, I did great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Do you remember the first try?
Yeah.
You drove past the
I
pit
remember.
box, and then we had the tow back, and the race was over.
Yeah, but that's like I didn't mess up the driving.
No, the driving was great. You pitted, and we were in first place.
The driving was so good that I overtook half the prototypes before the green flag.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So, in iRacing, you could go before the green, and it's generally kind of expected that you do. Um,
You're supposed to, or
or
everyone
things
gets
stack
mad.
up. Yeah, everything stacks up. Honestly, I kind of think real racing should do that. It's just like the leader goes, and then when the guy waving the green flag notices that the leader has left, then he waves the green flag. Like the guy with the flag is reacting to the leader.
That's how most pro racing works, but I don't like that. But anyway, go ahead about the iRacing
Because
stuff.
it spreads everyone out. It's it like you don't have like a bunch of bunched and like
Yeah, yeah, but you're already on pole. What I mean, you need more advantage. Like everyone goes at the same time. Come on.
I look, I get the arguments for each of them. I just think it's safer if it's go on leader, essentially. When it's not go on leader in iRacing, there's way more crashes. So it has to be like the same in real life. When it's go on leader, there's less crashes. So that's why people will get
Yeah.
upset in iRacing if the leader doesn't just go. But so we're the slowest class. It's like the LMP1 or whatever cars, and then the LMP2, and then the GT3 cars, and we're driving GT3, and Tom's way back. You can't even really see the prototypes,
On
and
pole.
he's on pole. So Tom decides when the GT3's it was a great lap, Tom. Great job. You nailed all three corners of Daytona. And it was a good lap.
Damn.
um so so Tom goes and everyone follows him, and the prototypes, they didn't go
Wait,
early.
you didn't say when I goes, but I goes in turn 3 NASCAR. Like I went so early.
Yeah. And so then Tom's and in iRacing, when you're on the banking, you can't really see that far in front of you. So the banking starts to like flatten out, and it's just a sea of prototypes. And right as Tom's getting to him, it goes green. So it's not like Tom's gonna lift. So he was like he
Yeah.
literally, oh, it was GTE cars. So it was the Daytona prototypes GTE. So Tom passed all of the GTE or the GTLM cars. That's also what they're called. So he passed like literally all of them. He was in first place of the GTLM race to start the race, and some of the prototypes as well. And it was absolute chaos. I think second place died, third place died, and Tom just drove away. And he drove away so far, he drove past the pit box.
Oops. But hey, good thing it's a video game that no one takes seriously.
But then we did the very next
Kidding.
time segment, and then we won. So we did it again.
Hell yeah.
And I remember
Speaking of iRacing, oh,
what
go ahead.
we were panicking when you were coming around for your first stop because we still weren't sure exactly where the pit box was.
Yeah, it's mostly because I don't know how to work like the iRacing pit stops and stuff. Everything else was fine. But guys, we don't really have a topic, but we do have a questions kind of episode today. And the first question ties into this. DJ, this is for you from our friend Tom Pendergrass. Why do half the cars in iRacing drive like absolute trash? And why do other cars drive well? And I think we can tie this into what cars should you use in iRacing?
I watched a really awesome video on this, and I'm trying to remember who did the video so I don't credit it incorrectly. It was, oh, my history didn't go back far enough. Uh it was Gamer Muscle, I think is what the channel is. It's a sim racing channel on YouTube. Gamer Muscle Videos. That's his YouTube channel. And or maybe it was shoot, I don't remember who did the video. Oh, it was sorry guys, I'm fumbling all over this. It was Random Call Sign. So uh he's kind of a smaller channel, but he does really good sim racing videos. And he was talking
Okay.
about why iRacing wins, even though it might not have the best driving dynamics of all the sims. Because if you're this like if you're like Pratt and Miller or some Formula One team or whatever, you're not like grabbing the iRacing physics and then like modeling stuff after that. They're normally
You're not.
using Tom. They're normally using like R Factor 2 or like some modded version of that or something like that, right? So iRacing might not necessarily have the best driving physics, but when it comes to the service that's provided, the sim is just a small part of that. Um, so
Yeah.
it's the
Meaning
ov
the physics model, the engine that it runs on.
yeah, the physics
Yeah.
is like it's just a part of it, and on for the most part, there's some odd cars here and there. For the most part, it's good enough for what you want to get out of it. So when it comes to like competitive racing, with like really competent, like really solid drivers, both just pure just sim racing drivers, but sometimes I have just like this crazy race with somebody, and I'm like, I've never seen that person in my life, and I look them up and they're like a GT3 driver in Europe. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool that like I got to like bang doors with like that dude. Um,
Yeah.
so like that's what you get on iRacing. You're not going to get that on any other sim, even though some other sims might have better driving dynamics. It lacks the whole service, which is iRacing. It's like huge updates every 12 weeks that, tweak stuff, they add content. It's like it's a constant stream of content. And yes, the content's expensive, but like you're honestly, I think you're getting what you're paying for. I don't think there's a better tool out there to be a race car driver than iRacing. So some of the cars do drive a little wonky, like the Skip Barber car that has like that does not drive like a car to me. There's a bunch of different cars that don't drive like cars, but
Interesting. I think that one drives closer to than a lot of the cars, and he calls out specifically the Renault Clio, the GR86 touring car or cup car, the Porsche Cup car, and half the GT4 cars are as like, why don't they drive right? So you think that? Sorry, I cut you off, but I think the
yeah,
Skip Barber is a little more normal.
the Skip Barber does this weird thing where like the car just keeps turning more the more you turn the wheel. So like when you're really setting fast times in that, like the slip angle of the front tires is not matching like the optimal slip angle of the rear. It's just like way more slip angle on the front is like the optimal turning for the skip. And it just like when you're and honestly for the skip barber because it drafts so much, it doesn't really matter too much when you're like really lizarding time. Um but it's just like weird driver nuances and I haven't driven it in like 2 years, so maybe it's changed since then, but it's always been a little bit weird. The GR86, that thing doesn't drive like a car at all. Stay away from that thing. I like
Yeah,
unless you
yeah.
find it fun, but like that it's it has like unlimited grip. It's like it has like prototype level of grip. Uh and like it wants to roll and it porpoises and it locks its rear brakes on when you're entering a corner. It's just that that car has development woes that Toyota is kind of like handcuffing iRacing to. So hopefully someday it gets fixed because I think it would race really well. The BMW they just released, it's a BMW M2 CS Racing or something. Long name. It's just a BMW M2 that's like has a cage and stuff, and it's like their BMW M2 cup car essentially.
Yeah.
I might have never driven a car in iRacing that drives so much like a car as that thing. Like
Okay.
it's like I'm driving the crap out of it right now because it gives me all the right sensations of driving a fast car on a racetrack. Like a fast street car almost.
Right, which is what it is. I mean, that's
Essentially that's
what
what
it's
that
designed to
car
be.
is. Yeah.
So what would you say is when we're kind of coming into like sim season, I would say. What would you say is your, I don't know, target or focal point for like what cars you enjoy driving that relate to real cars, whether it's iRacing or not? But
I
I have
so
kind of a hard time putting my finger on this, so I'm curious what you say.
yeah, I'm so I like driving cars that feels like it's like working on weaknesses that I have perceived that I have as a overall driver. So even like I love driving the Porsche Cup car, and I recognize it does have some behavior that might not completely exist in real life. But the way it drives in sim, I think reinforces really good habits in terms of, and it like the thing it does is when you do something incorrectly, when like on a foundational level, you're not like using the inputs correctly, it punishes you, and it's really, really unforgiving, and maybe not as forgiving as it should be, right? If it was you know, if it was based more in reality, if like the physics were closer to reality. But I like how much it punishes you because it's forcing me to be more accurate. It's forcing me to expand my bandwidth and to have a light hand on the wheel and to be really diligent at for like how I get in the brakes, how I come off the brakes, and then also having the car pointed at the exit as I feed in throttle. Like you get huge chunks of time on that. And those are things that I think are going to translate well into real life. So if I can get better at them in that car with as immediate as the feedback is in that car, then I become a better driver in real life.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I sit on
So
it. And it races super good. And the generally the crowd that races those cars, they tend to race cleaner than other like GT3 lobbies are a little bit of a mess.
because they're all trying not to die.
Yeah, exactly. But like GT3 cars, like, dude, I'll get out qualified by like 3,000 I rating GT3 car drivers, and I'm just like, okay, like yeah, he's fast, but like at some point he's just gonna crash. And sure enough, it's like all the 3,000 I rating people crash in the GT3 cars, and then it's like 5,000 and up, like in the like the top 10, like finishing the race. So like I'll qualify like 15th or 16th, and I'm like, man, people are fast in this thing. And then everyone dies, and I've like finished like 7th or 8th.
Right. Hmm.
But in the Porsche Cup, it doesn't
So
it doesn't happen like that. It's like the racing is close, and also like literally the fastest people on the sim, you can always find them driving Porsche Cups.
that's true. So you would say that your biggest draw are the cars that keep you on your toes almost further than most cars in real life do,
Yes. Yep. And I think
because you want that to be a training tool for like it's easier in real life almost.
yeah, exactly. So like if I can do that, like I remember when I first got my race car, because I played, you know, uh comp school was my third time on a racetrack, and then my first green flag at Mid Ohio with GLTC was my fourth time on a racetrack. And that car had blown shocks. I didn't know it had blown shocks, but I thought it was pretty equal. I'm like, yeah, iRacing is about this hard or whatever, as like as this car or whatever. And then when I like got proper shocks on the car, I was blown away how much easier it was than iRacing. So like I had these training weights of like man, this driving on the racetrack stuff is tough. Like all the inputs are like so delicate and whatever. And then I threw MCSs on the car, and it's like I like threw off the training weights, and I'm like, aha, me in my final form. Literally my first race weekend on the MCSs, I won a race. I won my first race.
Yeah.
Yeah, is I threw off all the training rates weights and was like, oh yeah, hey, this is way easier than I thought it was.
Right, right. That's an interesting point. I feel like the cars that I drive and gravitate towards the most are the cars where like the car control aspect of it is the least I don't want to say least important, but least
You gravitate
detailed maybe
you gravitate toward the cars
because
that have like wonky driving characteristics.
no, no, I wouldn't say that I like the wonky characteristics. I like the cars where the car control correlates to what I believe my real life car control is. So to your point about the GR86, you said that this car is sorry, this is an iRacing nerd podcast, sorry. But the
This is just the first
GR86 in
question.
iRacing does not drive like a car because it grabs extra grip at certain aspects. It locks the rear axle. It wants to dive while it grabs grip from the front end. So it just
Yeah.
like grip spins on entries and stuff. Um, that's not realistic in any way, shape, or form. So
No.
like I will not drive that car because that's not even close to how real life works,
And
let alone enjoyable.
yeah, I don't think that car teaches good real life habits either, because like how quickly you need to come off the brakes in that car to not have that weird like grip roll, like the unlimited front end grip thing. Um, I
Yeah.
think if you do that in a real car, like you're leaving so much time on the table. Like yeah, like you're not going to be well versed in moving the weight around the edge of the car for how quickly you need to come off the brakes in this particular car.
Exactly. But then so that's like the extreme example. And then there's the cars in the middle, which to maybe some people would be some of the GT4 cars or this Porsche Cup car, whatever. Kind of the popular iRacing lobby cars, let's say. That in my opinion, the car control of them makes no sense. Like I spin and crash these cars the way that they are required to like be on the edge without overstepping the edge is so unrealistic to me. The only car that I've really ever driven like that in recent memory would be that Boxster on the Continental ECSs that I bitched about on, you know, like that car was unpredictable in the same way that like an iRacing car that's bad is.
You said ECS, you meant ECF.
ECF,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry.
The ECSs are
Yeah,
fine, everyone. The ECSs are fine. The ECFs want you dead.
the tire that was so bad that I had to rant about it on the podcast. Like that to me is that is what most iRacing cars give. The iRacing cars that I love are the ones that don't have that for like I guess it's detail or the knife edge of car control. So I love like the street stock because it moves around a lot. I love even the V8 supercars, as annoying as those are. Like the car control makes sense in those cars. To me, the Skip Barber car makes sense with the way it controls. Um, those are the cars that I gravitate towards because I don't feel like my car control in the simulator is a limiting factor of me being able to drive or do a good job in that car. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I will. So the BMW M2, the one that just came out, it's
Hmm.
probably not as forgiving as it should be. That um, if it was like 1-to-1 real life, but it makes the racing really good because mistakes are a little bit easier. So it makes it a little bit more dynamic.
Does it snap spin or does it snap push?
It has really good traction control, but in the fixed races, it's a little bit faster if you turn it off. So you kind of make it uh, want to kill you, and you'll gain like a tenth per lap if you can reel it in. So, oh,
So can we
that's
do like a Lizard Brains definitive list of cars you should drive practicing this winter?
really, I think.
We didn't plan this, but
Look, I think I like the idea of that list, but everyone experiences the sim in different ways. So I think as long as it's not the GR86, as long as it's not that car, I'm so mad how bad that car turned out because I was so excited for it. Um,
that's how I felt when the TCR cars came out. Guys, the
yeah,
TCR cars are
those aren't.
exceptionally bad.
Yeah, those aren't very good either. They should be. They're a little bit better than they used to be, Tom, but they still don't drive
Yeah.
like a front wheel drive car. Um, but I think you should drive the thing. I don't want you to feel like, oh, I should drive this or whatever. I think you should. I think you need to critically look at what you're leaving on the table as a driver and pick the car that exposes that weakness the most and drive that for.
How do you learn that? What do you mean by that?
So if like for example, like the Porsche Cup will make you, it is going to force you to be more deliberate on exactly what's happening on that brake pedal with your foot, right? Uh, the GT4s, I think they race exceptionally well. Uh, so if you want to have like pack racing and faster cars, I think GT4 works. If you want to get some draft racing like you, if you want to race the entire race, then the Miatas are good for that. Like I think what will get you the most benefit from iRacing is by whatever captures your lizard brain, you just dive into that, right? But not at the point where that's the only thing you do. You should still switch it up because you don't want to become so like there's so many people that are just like a Miata specialist. And I used to be that person. I would only drive that car. Honestly, at one point I was probably the fastest person on iRacing in the Miata. No lie. I'm not exaggerating. But that was the only thing I drove. So anytime there was any kind of competition involving the Miata or whatever, like Tom, you remember driving against me in that thing, you'd be like, I don't know how you're just getting better exits than me. It's because I had like such a nuanced feeling of what that car needed to the point where it was probably like holding me back as a driver because I wasn't exposing myself to the other things and other I remember like I was super fast in the Miatas, but like anything faster, it was like I was way off pace, and it's because I wasn't well rounded as a driver. I didn't have I did- like my whole package as somebody operating a race car wasn't developed yet, and it's because I stayed on the Miata probably too long, right?
Sure. I'll still hold the feather in my cap is beating you in the Miatas at Nürburgring for that GRM Winter Series. Do you remember this?
Nope, it must have been terrible for me. That's why I don't. That's why it's not in my brain.
I just meant the GRM Grassroots Motorsports did that Winter Series where it was like a different car combo every
Yeah.
night, and there was a couple of us that did every night, and there was a couple of groups from other teams who did
Hmm.
every night. So we had these little rivalries. That was so fun.
Dude, you know what,
Man, sim racing used to be fun.
dude? I think the highlight of, and maybe I'll bring this up on the next episode when we're talking to Kyle, is when we did that like Sim TV battle when it was all the leagues that they would commentate, and we did some
Yeah.
oval racing, we did a bunch of road racing stuff, and it was all in like one night. So it was like, I don't know, like 2.5 hours of racing, and it was all these different disciplines and stuff like of different leagues that they did. And I think Grid Life iRacers won, right?
I think so. But there was some drama about it with like half of us didn't know how the oval racing worked, so we weren't sure if we won. I don't
Oh,
know.
dude, remember Eric Catil? He was so pumped. He ended up getting like sixth or seventh in one of those oval races because there's a big crash at the
Yeah.
end. And Eric just like threaded the needle through everything and ended up getting like a really good placing that gave us a bunch of points.
Uh-huh. That was it. That's what okay, I remember this now. Yeah, there was some big one.
Dude,
Oh, that was
oh,
so
it was
fun.
so good. It was so good. I'm like getting nerd chills like thinking about it again.
So I'm trying to think about like what I seek out with I'm intrigued by the idea of being able to identify some weaknesses from your driving this year and utilize the tool of sim racing off season to like become better at them next year. Like in not the sense of just I'm going to play the sim and get better, but like I'm realizing that I need to work on X thing. And I'm really intrigued by it. How would you work on that? I feel like so for example, say your weakness is fast corners or slowing down less than 15 miles an hour for corners like turn 1 at Mid Ohio or insert your own fast corner here. Like what car and combo would you drive in would you seek that out or would you just start racing?
I think about those things on a more like what like where I would take that is what about that like scrubbing off 15 miles an hour for that corner is like why is that hard for me, right? And then maybe I identify that it's my bandwidth isn't incorporating like turn in references. Because if I can figure that turn in point, or maybe like a lift and then a turn in point, like if I can set two different references that help dial in that corner to be consistent, then like because that's what the hard part is, right? Is to be consistent and like taking that speed off accurately. So I'll
Yeah.
take it like one step further and try to figure out what are those things that I can change to make that thing more consistent, and then focus on those things everywhere. So try to be really diligent on like I brake here, I turn in here, and this is my angle at apex, and just try to cement those things in my head. Like try to be as unlazy as possible about that thing. So maybe I make it a point to drive only tracks that I don't have a good grasp on. So instead of like, oh, it's a Road Atlanta race in whatever car, and I could go do like 3 official races in that for the week, and I'm like, yeah, that was fun,
Blindfolded.
right? Or like for example, there's something about Spa that I don't get. I'm just off pace at Spa. I don't know what it is, but if I could get on pace at Spa, I have solved the weakness of mine, whatever that weakness was. Because if I apply myself to find pace at a track that I'm obviously off pace of and I don't know why, then I am fixing a weakness of mine that I didn't even know I had by getting on pace. Never do you just like, oh, and now I'm on pace. Wow, that's convenient. I don't know what I did differently, but now I'm on pace, right? Like that doesn't happen. Like you figure something out. You're like, oh, I'm leaving time here. Or, oh, I was focused too much on the angle of this first turn that leads into another turn. But really, if I just kind of like cut this curving more and just like let the like be more diligent about holding the weight on the nose of the car. So I turn this into one element where the weight's on the nose the whole time, rather than like two elements where the weight kind of like gets shifted around a little bit more, like little stuff like that. It just like adds to like the repertoire of like tools in your tool belt essentially. So like try to recognize where like you're underachieving compared to where you're normally on pace. So if you're normally on pace with somebody and then you go to a track and they're like just way faster than you, like you're missing something there. There's something to be figured out there, right? Or if you're off pace relative to where you normally would be. Ooh, I like changing the pictures, Tom. Um, Tom has the GT4 posters as the banner of the video podcast. Um,
Getting that AdSense in. Sorry, I
if
interrupted you mid thought.
yeah, you're fine. I interrupted myself. So if you jump into a car and you're off pace, then there's something about that car that is an obvious weakness to you. And then once you identify what
Mm,
that weakness is, then the weakness
that's where it
kind of
is.
yeah, the weakness kind of like figures itself out relatively quickly. But if I think at first it's noticing that like, okay, this is normally where I'm in, but in this outlier of a car or a track or a type of racing or whatever, I'm way off pace. Explore that. Figure that out. Why are you off pace? Right? Use the tools at your disposal, like VRS and coaching and stuff like that. Like find the thing that you're lacking in, and then figure out what gaps need to be filled in for you to not lack at that anymore.
Yeah. So, okay, this is just me interviewing you at this point about iRacing, but what do you think is the most common if the root question is why do some cars just feel wrong? Is there a correlation to the cars that feel wrong that you can have things that either go you have deficits that are common amongst those cars or I'm asking this badly, but basically, how can you tell that a car what's the difference between the car is just bad and I don't want to drive that car and I have a deficit in this car and I need to get better at this? Like an obvious one
Yeah.
is just like I know I'm bad at non-ABS cars. I, general you, I think I'm not bad at ABS cars,
No,
non-ABS cars.
yeah,
But
no. When it
like if you get
comes
in every non-ABS car that is an iRacing and you suck at it, that's different than like those cars suck.
Tom is actually amazing at non-ABS cars in iRacing. Like prototypes, I think Tom is literally
Yeah, yeah,
untouchable.
yeah.
Tom is so fast at prototypes, I'm telling you. Um,
It's like a video game at that point.
I'm serious. Like Tom just kills me on the brakes and the prototypes. At least he used to. I've gotten a lot better on the brakes, and we haven't driven against each other in a while. But
Yeah, I went out on top.
in prototypes,
Kidding.
um, uh,
No, I went out upside down on my top in a blaze of glory,
okay,
and then I
okay.
alt F forward and never came back.
That makes sense. I think what you asked is a really valid question. I think I think you have to be finding fun in the thing. Like for example, V8 supercars. I know I'm off pace in a V8 supercar. There's probably something to learn there. But I just don't enjoy driving those things at all. Like at all. I just don't like them. And it's maybe the newest iteration of them, I would like them, but what kind of diff did they have that was weird? A spool?
Spool diff. Yeah.
Yeah, spool diff, and then they have this like giant rear wing. So if you're going quick at all, the car just understeers like crazy. And if you're off throttle, the diff has so much decel lock, you can't turn the car. So if it's a fast corner and you're not in throttle, the car just doesn't turn at all. And maybe there's something for me to learn there. But literally as I'm describing it, I'm getting like a headache thinking about it. Like I just hated driving that car. Like if I drove a car
If
like
you're
that
not
in real
watching
life, I would be like, "Ah, I'm just going to go drive a different car. Like screw this thing."
that's amazing. You literally got like a migraine physically as you described it.
I hate it so bad.
I think a thing that is a common deficit creator is cars that need both feet to drive at the same time. Because you never do that in your street car. You never do that in your street car in any motorsports application. Like what driver is going to the track day and like overlapping throttle and brake in their track day car? Basically nobody. And if you don't have the Porsche Cayman, then I don't know why you're doing that. But in iRacing, there's a lot of cars that require that because there's downshift nuances and there's like to your point about the spool diff V8 supercar, there's cars that require like a different amount of load on the diff to like make it actually work really well. I think that's probably a big challenge that people don't even know that that's what you're supposed to do or could do.
You're talking about like giving a little throttle even if you're on the brakes in the V8 supercar to open up the diff.
Right, like playing with both pedals at the same time to create different dynamics that most cars don't require.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the sim, there's a bunch of cars we would never drive that do require that kind of thing. Or honestly, I think another one, a big pitfall for sim would be not letting the tires get warm enough, which is annoying as hell because you have to like do the research on which cars want their tires warm. But if you're not making it to like lap 5 and you're getting spun and crashed and like you're annoyed at lap 1 and 2, I could see that being like a deficit in the car where you just think the car is bad, where it's actually you. You know what I mean?
So the cold tire thing, um, like a couple years ago, yeah, cars were really really sketchy in the cold tires. Maybe I'm assuming they made changes. I'm assuming I didn't just become like a sim racing god where I'm like, I don't know, it's not even an issue anymore. I don't think that's what happened. I think they made changes that made the cold tire thing way better. But I totally get what you're saying. In terms of the cars doing like weird stuff with both feet or whatever, I don't see having fidelity and the like being aware of what your feet are doing, even if only the sim requires that thing. You're still like gathering uh, nuance and skill with your feet that otherwise wouldn't exist. And the sim is highlighting your lack of nuance with your feet. And that
Yep.
nuance, even if it isn't as extreme in the real life, will translate into the real life because now the real life is easier. Like your feet can do more than what's required, which is better than not as much as what's required.
I like that. I think that might be helpful for some people going into this off season. And if you're struggling with sim racing, I know a guy who can help.
Yeah, honestly, I think I have
He's
like
pretty high demand,
I
but
I I think I have like 10 different sessions this week, but I'm not doing anything this weekend. So, well, I have sessions this weekend. Well, we are recording a podcast on Sunday, but I have room. I have room this weekend. I'm figuring out how to get people in. It's like during like lunch breaks and stuff like that. But if you're interested in sim coaching, please reach out. Uh, I finally raised my rates and people are still saying yes. So maybe I'll have to me and Tom were talking. I was like, yeah, every single time I bring up my rates, somebody goes like, oh, okay. Like they were expecting it to be more expensive. So I raised it, probably not as much as Tom wanted me to, but I charge $60 an hour and I always charge a half hour prep fee. So even if you cancel, you get charged a half hour prep fee. Assuming I did prep, I'll be honest. Um, so if it generally people, what are you laughing at?
I just love we're such bad business people that we're like honestly bluntly just like, well, I won't charge you if I didn't prep.
Well, I will like if it comes to your
I
coaching session, I will be prepped. But sometimes it's like, oh, like they'll cancel like 3 days before, and it's like, well, I haven't even gotten to the prep, so like we're good. You just want to reschedule,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if I spent the time to prep and get like sufficient and like adequate to talk to whatever we're working on, then yeah, I'm gonna get paid for that half hour that I put into the thing. So.
That was
Uh,
smart.
yeah, and unless we're just like looking at like racecraft videos and stuff like that, that's not really going to require prep. If we're just like kind of going over replays, which I do that with a couple customers, then you don't get a prep fee because I just sit down, we spend an hour together, and then we go on. So it's $60 an hour. If we're working on pace, which I would say is 90% of my clientele, then it's going to cost you $90 essentially is what it will cost. Sometimes people
Deal.
they have enough endurance to go an hour and a half, but I would say most people, because we're basically we're changing your golf swing, right? It's a lot of concentration, and people tend to peter out around like the hour mark, and by then I've given you enough like low hanging fruit and stuff to go work on your own, that you can go like eat some food, sit on the couch for a little bit, and then come back to the sim when your brain's not like freaking spent. It's
Yeah.
there's no point in just like grinding it out. Like it's best it's best to do it in chunks anyways. So you like work on it, you go relax, you work on it, go relax, work on it. Like the reps are more important than the duration. So yeah, reach out to me. Can be on the Discord, on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. People find ways to get a hold of me. So, but yeah, it's going really well. I'm excited for all the coaching so far this winter, and I haven't posted or said anything about it, and I have a bunch of clients, which is pretty encouraging.
That's cool. And I really like the outcome of that question being if you think a car is terrible in the simulator, regardless of the sim you're playing or whatever your outlet is for this stuff, if you think the car is bad or the even the sim is bad, do a really honest analysis with yourself about is it because of something that I can close the deficit on, or is it just because it's bad? And if it just turns out that it's bad, like you don't like that car or whatever it is, that's great. Like DJ's analysis of like, I just don't like the V8 supercar. I'm not going to drive it.
I just
Totally
don't like
fair.
it.
But yeah, if
Here's the
you can drive these
difference.
cars in The Sims, go ahead.
Here's the difference. I recognize what I would have to do to be sufficient at that thing, and
Exactly.
I don't think that's fun. That's the difference. If you
Yeah,
don't
it's like I don't want to.
if you're like, I don't know, I'm just slow in that thing and I don't understand why I'm slow and screw that car, then I think that's wrong. But if you recognize it's like, okay, I'd have to be better at this, I'd have to be better at that, I'd have to be better at that, and those things don't sound fun to you, you don't necessarily have to do those things unless those are like the last things to get good at. If you're like, I don't know, I'm literally the best at everything else. Now I have to work on
Yeah.
this spool diff car, then maybe you'll have to drive the V8 supercar. But there's other things that you could be working on. So work on the things that are one, low hanging fruit, and then two, you think would actually be fun to go after, because then you're going to be more likely to go after those things.
Right. Not suffering.
Yeah.
We have a couple other good questions, but do you want to do the free questions thing?
I have a question for you, Tom.
Oh, tell me.
What do you think at the moment is your low hanging fruit as a driver?
I think my racecraft has probably slipped pretty bad for the last 2 years of not really competing. Uh, I found myself very intimidated with race starts, uh, regardless of where I am. Like, I remember the Mid Ohio race at the beginning of this year, and didn't really qualify, so I was starting like 26th of 27 or 28 in the field, and it was the first time I had not started essentially on the front row for a green flag since a non-invert GLTC race, but otherwise it was around a bunch of strangers in a field of cars I didn't know, and I was very overwhelmed. And it went poorly. I ended up getting chopped and hit. But even ever since then, all the race starts that I've been a part of, I'm just like,
You just
this isn't that important. I can chill.
yeah.
But I know that that's like a combo of not really racing full time and not really sim racing because both of those are going to flex those muscles. I'm really happy with my like endurance racecraft, but I feel like my sprint racecraft is probably pretty weak right now.
Where it's like a
Like if I were to
battle.
actually do that Lime Rock Mid Ohio or that Lime Rock truck race,
Yeah.
in my current headspace, I think it would go very poorly
You'd get
because
bullied.
I haven't really. I think I'd get bullied to hell. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't even how would you work on that? You just gotta race more.
I got to race more, but like I said, other than sim racing, I think I'm probably pretty brutally honest about where I'm at with that. Meaning, I'm better at it than a lot of people, but I'm still worse at it than I have been in my past. Uh, Outside of that, I would think I think my precision is a little lower than I'd like it to be. Like I don't drive competitively. That's not fair to say. I drive competitively fairly often, but my like attention to detail is a little bit lower. So I find the mistakes to be a little bit bigger, and by mistakes I just mean like I missed the apex or the slide was a little longer than I wanted it to be. But like the controlling of the detail to me is a little weaker than I'd like it to be.
Yeah. How would you work on that?
I I think that's honestly a product of the out of the car world. And I think my brain is a little noisier than I'd like it to be, so therefore my attention to detail in the car is noisier than I'd like it to be. That makes
Gotcha.
sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, dude, when I was in like 2018, 2019, when I was like in the gym 5 days a week, and that was all I was thinking about was like either being in a peaceful state of mind or racing a car, I was a fucking killer. But I didn't have anything else making noise in my brain.
Yeah, I hear you. So you think you could tighten up the focus a little bit more and the racecraft.
The attention to detail, I would say. I don't know about the focus. Maybe those are the same thing, but I don't interpret them the same.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, I would love to be able to race more so that my racecraft feels tighter. Like I don't like being the one that's like feeling nervous. And I feel myself feeling the one I feel myself being the one nervous in the racecraft, like back and forth.
Yeah.
Like the sparring. Like there's one person who's dominant and one person who's a little more submissive, and it's really good racing when both people are really dominant and they're really like they're pushing the issue, but they're not being rude. I'm definitely the submissive person in most racing situations at this point in my driving. And I think it's mostly because I'm smarter than the other people, but I think for 10% of it, 20% of it maybe,
You're like, "Ah, I shouldn't have
it's
folded there." Yeah.
or maybe I didn't like I was the reason I say this that it really stood out. I was watching some of the moves that Clark and Anthony were pulling off in the Janetta in the live stream video that I said we had leading to feeding to pit lane. And they were making these dives and they were making these aggressive moves, and half the time I'd be like, and then they would obviously pull it off just fine. And I'm watching it going, maybe I should be more aggressive. But I also feel like I'm already at the limit of the car so much that like getting more aggressive is just taking bigger risks.
Yeah, that I think that's like, if you're just gonna get past that person anyways, and it's not really costing you any more time, but you can do it in, like, a way that doesn't force them to
Right. I think
react to your existence, then, like, that's the way I'm gonna do it every time.
right. A majority of my competition and my seat time in the last 2 years has been either endurance racing, which breeds this. I don't like the term submissive, but it's a much more like long play
Yeah.
style of driving.
It's like, you
And
have to
then
play the
autocross,
odds.
which is like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going for the single best run, so you're taking smaller risks with car control and with that kind of stuff. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, you have to play the odds. Like, okay, there has to be not a 4 off or a penalty or anything for, like, 18 hours or 12 hours or however long the race is, right?
Yeah,
But when it's a 15-minute race, then it's like, okay, we're fighting. Like now the duel starts. So you're saying you're rusty at the duel.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time I really did that was a pit race, and it was just GLTC. So I got powered by Corvettes down the front straight, and then powered by Houghton down the side straight, and then I followed them around. So that wasn't really racing.
Yeah.
But like, I can watch those videos back and say like, there was nothing I could have done. That's just like crappy racing. But when I look at the long play endurance racing videos with my teammates and stuff, and some of the things they pull off just by being either confident or unknowingly confident, let's say. I'm like, if I was a little bit more dominant and a little more aggressive, maybe in my presence. I think when I used to have that presence in like in IMSA and stuff,
Yeah.
I think I had it down. And now you like it's one of those things that you just lose by not doing it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a cuz you're riding the line of what you can get away with, right? And right now it's
Yeah.
like right what basically what you're saying is like I I feel like I have a general idea where the line is, but I used to like know where it was. And right now the line's like a little fuzzy.
Right. Because my worst nightmare is being the guy that's like somehow on the inside but loses control and like doors the guy on the outside. To me, that's like the absolute worst nightmare. Unacceptable.
Yeah.
There's literally there's no acceptable excuse for that to happen. So in those situations, I feel myself doing that and feeling, if anything, what it creates is that really annoying dynamic where somebody like commits to the pass but not the completion, so they end up side by side for longer than they should.
And yeah, and it's like, what are we doing?
Right.
Yeah.
I That stood out to me as a weak point in the faster car most recently, so that's why it's present in my head.
Yeah, gotcha.
What do you think? You asked
For
me what are my weak where are my weak points and blind spots.
so
What are you trying to work on?
Well, you were thinking I'm thinking of it like from a just like creating a lap time with the car. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. And I think I need to be better at my initial pivot into the corner. And then also the shape that I'm making where I can commit into power sooner and then follow the rear tires out. I think I'm the shape that I'm making in corners, and I keep seeing it pop up. So, and that's a promising thing. That means that I'm recognizing when I'm doing it incorrectly. It's I'm getting in power, and maybe the outside rear tire isn't being fully utilized all the way to the edge of the track with like how I feed in power. Maybe like the car definitely glides out there, but it's more like the front is doing a little bit more work than the rear, and that means
Hmm.
I'm leaving potential acceleration on the table. So the initial and there's two things that help with that. If I can get a better initial pivot, that means I can turn in later or earlier, later. I can turn in later and have the same speed on the corner, but I'll have a more squared up exit so I can get into throttle more committed. So
Mm.
little things like that. I'm just like trying to clean that up. When it comes to
Do you think that's a product of driving higher horsepower cars this year?
yeah, it's
Then
that weakness has been shown to me driving Peter's GT3 RS. So the
sure,
Cayman, I
because
feel
it's so
like
much harder to actually like put that much power down.
yeah, the Cayman was kind of it was like the perfect amount of power where you just kind of like squeeze to flat and then you just follow the rear out. I felt like I had that fine. But this one like the throttle squeeze needs to be like the right amount and it differs depending on like the initial pivot into the corner and trying to iron out like that throttle application is tough. It was basically impossible in the ECFs, but I found like I was kind of it was way easier on the Bridgestones. Um, but I still felt myself leaving time on the table. Like I would get it in a couple corners like ideal and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I just need to do that more," right?
Yeah.
But like I know I'm leaving time on the table because I'm not doing it every corner. And I'm having to think so much about it. At some point it will just be a subconscious executable and that will just be the way I drive the car. But right now I'm having to put a lot of like brain power into that.
I developed this bad habit when I was racing the TCA Civic. It was the Civic Turbo, and for mm, the very first weekend we raced, it was the Thunderhill 25 hour, and it wasn't tuned in a way that allowed for the boost request to be variable as you fed throttle. So what that meant was as you tipped into the throttle, let's say you're in a longer corner and you feed throttle to like 50%, it registers up to 50% boost request, essentially is how the car thought. But if you lifted back to zero instead of maintaining and then like right back, instead of maintaining a similar boost request for a period of time, it would reset to zero and then it would have to like rethink. And all that meant that the car was really, really, really slow to respond to adjustments in the throttle if you lifted later in the corner.
Yeah.
So you're going these longer carousels and these, big corners
And
where maybe
you lift to tuck the nose and then you get back to power and you're like, "Ah, shit."
a day none. It's
Yeah.
kinda like yeah, it's kinda like when you drive an ND Miata and you do that double throttle thing and it
Yep.
just, like,
Oh,
dies
that
for a
always
moment.
kills me.
Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, it's kinda like
Well,
that.
hold on, maybe we should
So then
explain it a little bit.
go
So,
ahead.
on the ND2, it's the ND2 Miata, the ND1 didn't do this. Mazda put a thing in their ECU, and as far as I know, nobody's been able to tune it out, where if you double tap the throttle, it, like, kills power for a second, and it's to protect the transmission. So, if you've ever driven an ND2 and you get in power and you go, "Oop, nope, not quite the right trajectory," and then you lift and then get right back into it, and now you're like, "Well, now I'm just late on throttle," right? That's
Yep.
that's that's what we're talking about is that delay.
The autocrossers for sure know. The track day people might know. Depends
Yeah.
on how good you are at your throttle. But anyway, it's like that combined with the turbo, that I then drove for another year and a half, I got this really bad habit of, like, playing with the throttle through the middle to exit of the corner. but I got really good at carrying entry speed because the detail in when I got to throttle didn't matter quite as much,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Or like the amount of throttle I maintained after the apex when I got on the throttle didn't matter as much. So I still have that to this day, only when I'm uncomfortable, but I'll do the playing with the throttle thing. And it actually works really well in the Porsche. I found that because I commit early, but I'm uncommitted. So I'm playing with the throttle, from like it's not even full. Maybe it's full, but it's like, from 80 to 40%. It's just this like weird like blah range. But it's not fluffing either.
It's
It's
not.
somewhere in the middle
You'll
of like
you'll hear it.
fluffing to like full throttle.
Watch Tom go through turn 1 at Mid Ohio, and you'll hear it. It's like "ma" on the brakes, "ma, ma, 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 ma," like on the exit.
It's like,
Yeah.
you know what it's like? It's like Senna.
Oh god, get out of
It's like
here.
famous racing driver Ayrton Senna. That's what it's
God.
like.
Uh,
But yeah, that that style of like just trying it and then like fixing it later has stuck with me for better or for worse. But it kind of fixes your problem of finding like the right limit to be on the throttle all the way to the exit of the corner.
yeah,
If anything, I end up lifting right at the exit of the corner. But for the smallest little like I can fix it pretty quick.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think it does. And I could always lift, but what I don't wanna do is I don't wanna send the car into, like, a tank slapper because, like, a Porsche tank slapper is pretty freaking slappery. So,
True.
yeah.
That sounds like a new model, Porsche Tank Slapper. Tank
Uh,
Slapper Carrera S.
yep. Yeah. Uh, but it's something that, I'm noticing in sim. It's something I'm noticing when I drive other cars. It's just it was never super apparent to me until I drove the GT3. Now that it's apparent, it's something that I'm trying to get better at. And in the D Street GR86, I think that will help a lot because uh, that car really needs to it really needs to ride the outside rear tire on exits like more exact than what I have been doing in that car.
Sense.
So I don't know. We'll just try to keep getting better. Isn't that? I mean, that's what's fun about motorsports, isn't it? Like, there's always these little things. Look, guys, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you don't have like I'm thinking about those things all the time. Um, so if you don't have like your couple low hanging fruits that you're just kind of thinking about, just even like you just driving to work and you're just like you're just staring out the windshield thinking. Uh, find those things and think about them. Let them plague you a little bit. Uh, if somebody were to ask you right now, what's your low hanging fruit, and you don't really have an answer for them, you're
Yeah, honestly, I'm proud of us for having answers pretty quickly because that was off the cuff that you just did that, and we both had answers pretty
I
quickly.
just I somehow knew you would have an answer because like we think the same about competition. Like I think
Yep.
I mean we might have stumbled on the thing that like separates uh us from other it might separate us from like those people that like plateau like really like early. They might not be
Yep.
and we've talked about this before where like I think a lot of it has to do like with the chaos in their life. So they actually don't have the time to like just sit there and like think about their driving and think about the way they compete and stuff like that. So it's and they don't get to do it as much, right? But if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming, I mean, we might be wildly entertaining, but I'm assuming you're listening to this podcast because uh because you want to get better at driving. It's something that you care
Because you
about.
love conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
or
ahead.
you like were like when are they going to talk about the moon landing? Like we'll get there, don't worry. Um but I would think that like you're on this like self improvement path, right? And then you find this podcast helpful, I'm assuming. If that's not why you listen to us, then please let me know because we're missing the mark or something. So, uh, but yeah, to me, like that's you should have that low hanging fruit. You should have that thing that's like in your brain right now.
So, uh, Doug is listening live. He said the problem is narrowing them down to a couple, which I interpret as there's a sect of motorsports people who are self-deprecating and like, I just suck at it all.
Yeah.
Not
Where
saying
do
that's
I
what
even
Doug's saying,
start?
but narrowing it down, like honestly, the low hanging fruit part is
Yeah.
the critical statement there. But honest, like either give yourself the grace to not be successful somewhere or to like be willing that it's okay. Like I remember this guy, I was coaching him once and he was like, we were at Heartland Park and he was like, turn one, turn one, turn one. He's so fixated on turn one at Heartland Park, which is a scary corner and whatever was a scary corner. And I
Wow.
looked at his data and he was within 2/10 of my reference lap and within, 4 or 5 miles an hour of min speed, but he was doing a better job in entry when did a better job in exit, whatever. All this to say, he didn't need to work on turn one. And the gift of telling him, don't even care about that corner was all he needed to hear to be able to get faster in the corners where he needed to go faster. So I try really hard to tell people when I'm working with them, like you need to be willing to let everything else be bad to focus on the thing that's the focal point
Yeah.
because it's the focal point because it's the worst thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah.
not to like read you for everything. It's because that's the rest of the stuff is like better than this. So like don't worry about it. It's better than what you need to work on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When I'm working with people, like yeah, like you could pick and poke at every little thing, but like if I'm watching video of your lap, I'm gonna be quiet the first time through. I'm just gonna watch the whole thing because
Yep.
it makes no sense for me to start picking and poking at all these little things when there's a glaring mistake right in the middle that we need to have a conversation on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I crack up when you get the people who are they're watching the video and you get through like turn one or two, and then like turn three, they're like, "What did you think about that?" Like, I didn't see the video yet. Shut up. Let
shut
me watch
up.
the whole thing and then I'll tell you.
uh, so a lot of times with the sim coaching, I like stalk the people that I'm like going to coach. And so, because I'm looking at their data, sometimes I have to call people. Which, dude, it's so funny. I had a conversation with somebody that I keep having to hound to do laps, and I was like, I had like a heart to heart, and I was like, hey, like, is this something that you want or whatever? And he's like, no, I love it when you're telling me to do that. You're like, hey, I haven't seen you doing laps yet. I'm like, oh crap, the boss is calling. I gotta get on and do laps. Like, he's like, I need that. And I was like, all right, like you're gonna get it then. Like that's if that's what you need from me, then that's what you're gonna get. So I'm glad I had that conversation because I always felt bad. I'm like, hey, you're gonna be practiced up for the thing, right? Like I always felt like like bad. But when somebody
Intruding. Yeah.
yeah, when somebody shows up not practice, it's kind of a waste of both of our time, right? Like they need to be like, I'm not there to watch you practice. I'm there to like make your best laps better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, but sorry, I got off track. So I'll look through the data. So when it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? Blah blah blah. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, how was your weekend? Blah blah blah. Okay, let's talk about driving. I already know like where I'm gonna go with the thing. We'll just scan through the data real quick, and I'm like, and this is what we're focusing on today. And like I already have like kind of a game plan of like, all right, we're gonna make a reset point here, and you're gonna do this corner like 30 times in a row, and we're gonna have a bunch of conversations, and like coming in like already kind of knowing what we're gonna talk about is like I don't know, it's a stress reliever off of me for one, because I'm like, oh cool. And I don't have to come up with a game plan on the spot. I can like think about it for a little bit and like think about like, all right, like what could be the like foundational issues that's causing like this one problem on this track? Like why that corner compared to all the other corners on the racetrack, right?
Mhm.
So it's
Dude,
like
someday I cannot wait for when we have Ross Bentley on the podcast. It'll happen sooner than later, but I've never asked him. I can't wait to just sit back and listen to you two talk because he's shared similar things about prepping for coaching and setting new goals for himself as a coach to be a better coach for the people he's working with. And when we had that conversation, if you want to listen to it, it's on the track walking podcast with Andrew Rains, Ross Bentley, and me. Uh, I feel like you and him are like kindred spirits.
are
I
we
can't
gonna
wait to
become
listen
best
to this.
friends?
I think so.
I hope so.
And he's also going to give you some good coaching rates, good coaching on your rates.
Oh, gotcha. Well, look, if I get
He'll just
so
tell you to double them.
yeah, I don't know if I just feel like it's like if I was running out of time, then I would increase the rates to where like I'm like, okay, well, like highest bidder, right?
Yep.
And I've been close to that before, and then that's why I increased my rates. But it's if my time's more limited, then I'll any new clients will get a higher rate. But
Right. I say that because I was coaching and I knew the industry standard, like the base level is $1,000 a day. If you're charging less than that, other coaches will, if they get word of it, they'll get mad at you. So that's what I was charging. Hardly anybody paid me that. But Ross Bentley walked up to me at Mid Ohio one day. He was coaching and I was coaching. And he goes, I don't know what your coaching rate is, but double it. And I was like, I don't think I can get away with that. Like, I don't think I'm charging as little as you think I am. Maybe he's serious. Maybe he's like $2,000.
well,
Double it.
how much do you think? How much do
$4,000.
you think Ross Bentley is to grab as a coach for a weekend? It's probably 5 grand.
I was gonna say 3 a day,
Yeah,
3,000 a day at
yeah.
least.
So you pay the travel. It's probably
That's some dude, I have a Hot Wheels car with his name on it in my basement. I don't have that pedigree yet.
yeah. You used to drive IndyCar.
Yeah, it's literally. Um, dang, okay, yeah, we gotta get him on over this off season.
Yeah, definitely the off season would probably be the time to grab him too, huh?
He's also been coaching remotely more and a little I don't wanna spill his
Yeah,
stuff, but
we'll let Ross talk about Ross.
yeah, when he's on, he'll tell us everything.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That would be a fun one. Yeah, I would be. I think we've talked about this before, but I think Ross is like the coach's coach.
He's like you, where you like I can feel the energy and like the you thrive off of the idea of improvement and like that push. I feel that from him. I'm jealous of that because I don't see that in a lot of coaches, and me included. Like I don't have that hunger for it at the same level, at least. Like I have it for certain people, but yeah, you like that's what I think. You and he are gonna be like this.
All right.
My fingers are wrapped
I'm
together.
gonna I'm gonna send him a text after this or like message him on Instagram or whatever and be like, "Yo, Tom said we should be best friends. Come on the podcast."
Just started off weird. Love it.
Yep. I can't wait. I can't wait for him to meet Carlton.
Oh,
You're like
I'm a huge Ross Bentley fan. It's going to be amazing. Oh, hold on. The camera's still on. That kind of gives it away. Oh, Ross Bentley, I'm a huge fan. Can't wait. Oh,
I can't wait for him to
you're
be
like
confused.
The Patrick Star meme. I love you.
I love you.
Was that pretty good?
That's pretty good.
Has this
Has this been a Patrick filter the whole time?
Oh my god, it's so close.
I never really watched SpongeBob, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he says. Mayonnaise.
I don't I want this bit to go further, but I'm picturing this as my dad's listening to it. If he made it this far, like we have to stop.
okay? Oh, sorry, Mr. O'Gorman. I never really watched
W
SpongeBob, so
for Wumbo. That's crazy. I can't believe you never watched SpongeBob.
W for Wumbo.
It's so close. It's very good.
I never really watched it, so I'm not entirely sure. I think
That's
I
okay.
missed SpongeBob. I missed it. I was like just getting over like that type of cartoon when it was
Yeah,
coming
you are
out.
pretty old.
Yeah, ancient. So, all right. We should probably wrap up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about our next episode that we're gonna have with Kyle. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, guys. Our next episode we'll have a guest.
Kyle Hire.
Go ahead.
We're gonna make a little bit of a hat tip to Dinners with Racers because we're recording the podcast at a restaurant while we're eating lunch. So it's gonna kind of have maybe that same vibe to it, or maybe we get kicked out halfway through the podcast. I don't know. You guys gotta tune in. I'm gonna try to figure out a way to do it on Discord, like a laptop and hotspotting off my phone and see if I can get it to work. If not, I'm sorry I tried. But I'm going to give it a shot essentially. but I have to power
I'm
stuff
so excited.
remotely. I don't want to rely on a plug. So I'm bringing like battery banks and stuff like that to try to get everything to work at the same time.
Right. Yeah, so Kyle's on his way home to visit his family for Christmas, this weekend. He's stopping in Cleveland. We're all going to go out to lunch together and have him on the podcast because I guess if you're a newer listener, you don't really know. Kyle and I lived together the first year that he moved to Chicago working for Grid Life. So he and I were roommates for a year. Then I moved to Wisconsin. He's the guy who basically broadcasts all of the sim racing stuff. And I think, to toot his horn early, but I'm going to do it again next week. Like, he defined what sim racing broadcasting looks like for the COVID era. Like, for that generation of people who were making that, I think he defined that because he was involved in SCCA, in Grid Life, in SRO, in basically everything but IMSA official iRacing broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I think he does a better job than those people. So I cannot wait to pick his brain.
I might be partial, but I think his broadcast and the races, and it's not just, we're going to talk about this next week, but we might as well do it two weeks in a row. It's not just his commentary. It's how he controls the cameras. Like the way he finds like interesting things happening on the racetrack, like at all times. Like he does this amazing thing where like it'll be a fight for the lead of the race, and he knows so much about racing and the track and where the racing and passing is going to happen, where it's like, okay, this battle for the lead's happening, but he's going to take some time to go like look at this like really interesting battle, three-way battle for like eighth. And then he has like an internal timer and he's like, okay, now they're getting to the back straight where the passing's going to happen and where this race is going to be decided. And then he goes back to that battle and like now you get to watch how that happens. And then he goes back to the eighth battle, and just like as you're watching the broadcast, you can feel like the story building, and it goes somewhere most of the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody does it better.
Also, Kyle likes to rant like me. So we're going to try to get Kyle to rant about something.
If he starts ranting too
We got
much,
to have the music ready.
oh man, goodness, I'll have it ready. I think I'm gonna put it on the podcast machine. I have an empty button here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tune in next week for Kyle Talks and Kyle Rants.
Dinner,
Maybe.
lunch. Wait, what did you call it? Lunch with?
Appetizers with an announcer.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, that would be the. We already. That's the. Oh, and Christine will be there. I don't know if she'll want me to put a mic in front of her, but Christine will be there because she likes the place that we're eating at.
Hell yeah.
So maybe she'll be on the podcast too. So, all right, guys. Tom, is there anything else that you wanted to throw in? This was a very sim racing heavy podcast, so I'm sorry for that.
No, I liked it. It was a driver growth heavy podcast. Yeah, and if you are not interested in the way we talked about it, then I think you're missing out. Because I don't sim race, and I still love that conversation.
If you're not sim racing, I still think there were some takeaways. Like find the things that you're not good at, figure out why. If the whys seem interesting to you, there's some unlocked pace just waiting for you to go get it. If they seem really tedious and boring, screw it. Some
Leave
other
'em be.
time. But you got to figure out the why. All right. Why are we leaving, Tom?
Why? You have to ask yourself when, how, which, where. Love your hair. Hope you win.